Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today we are not talking about the URC, I know I did earlier, but today we are in fact talking about Scotland. The Scotland Autumn Nations Series squad is due to be announced this Wednesday, so only 2 days away at the moment of recording this. It is Monday night. My intel says there'll be about 41 players, so that's what I've gone with. I've gone with a mix of experience and a few players who haven't made the mark that much in a blue and white jersey, however have been pretty decent for their club as of recent, also knowing that there is a couple of games where they will probably play a weaker team. I mean, you've got stuff like the Fiji games outside of the window, so that is only going to be players from Edinburgh and Glasgow. You've got the Portugal game, who you'd assume he's probably going to play a weaker team. And also you've got Scotland Day against Chile, which is said that it will be a split of kind of some under-20s players, some fringe players in the squad, some fringe players who maybe didn't quite make the squad, is said to make up that team. So yeah, a few of them who I think they might get into the A team, maybe the Portugal game, but maybe not quite there to face the Boks or the Aussies. Anyway, without further ado, let's get right into the action. Let me know who I missed out, and I will explain most of my players. And yeah, so let's go. So we're going to start off with one at the Lucy. So for Loosehead, I've got Pierre Schumann. I think that one speaks for itself. I think he's probably top 5 loosehead in the world at the minute. I think he probably should be on the bench for the Lions. And then I've got Rory Sutherland. I think Sutherland's been good for Glasgow. I know he's only just back, but he seems to be getting back up there. And I've also got the Glasgow Warriors' Nathan Macbeth. I don't think he's had many Scotland appearances, if any at all. I will put the number of caps and stuff on the screen. But yeah, he's had a decent stint for Glasgow for a while now, and probably does deserve to be in the team. So that is my ones. I've got Schumann, Sutherland and Macbeth. For 2, I've gone with Ewan Ashman, Johnny Matthews and Paddy Harrison. Ewan Ashman, he's probably Scotland's main 2 at the minute, especially with George Turner probably dropping out of contention and out of favour with his move to Japan. He can still be selected going to Japan, but I just think that he might drop out of contention. Johnny Matthews is Johnny Matthews. He's the try-scoring machine. He was the URC top scorer last year, so yeah, really no surprise there. And then Paddy Harrison has had an unbelievable start to the season with Edinburgh, and he might be one of those ones who I can see playing against Portugal and in the A squad to face Chile. To go on to the tight heads at 3, I think you've got Xander Fagerson, again, one of the best 3s there is in the world. I think he is in for fight for that Lions number 3. I wasn't going to really talk about the Lions squad until post Six Nations, but yeah, in current form I think Xander is well on the way to getting at least on the bench again. I have then gone with Darcy Ray from Edinburgh. Might not be everyone's pick, but I think again he's just had a phenomenal start to the season for the capital side. A very well stepped up by him. And then the other prop I've gone with is Elliot Miller-Mills from Northampton. Again, he's maybe was a little out there pick at the start of the Six Nations and came into the Six Nations, and really since then has actually grabbed at that 3 jersey, and maybe he's not quite able to contend with Xander, but he's definitely a good spot for that bench. So there's the front rows. No real surprises. There may be a couple, but yeah. Moving on, we're going to go with the locks. I'm going to do them both at the same time because usually if you can play 4, you can play 5. I've got Grant Gilchrist, Scott Cummings. Now, I've gone with either one of the 2 Greys. I think you'll go with one of them, not both. Richie Gray obviously has been phenomenal for Glasgow. However, he is maybe trying to take a step back with this move to Japan. He's not moved yet. He is going at the end of November, but maybe he'll just want to step back from Scotland duties. He's not officially retired, but yeah, he might be there. And Johnny Gray, he's just back from about a 15-month injury, and he's looked as lively as ever for Bordeaux. So yeah, I think I'll go with one of the two. I'm not quite sure which one, but yeah. And then last up, again, a player who I don't think's had much of a look in for Scotland, but has been good for club, and that is Max Williamson of Glasgow. I think he has been phenomenal. Again, kind of come out of nowhere in the last year or so, helped push Glasgow to that URC win, and probably deserves a place in the Scotland squad. So there is the locks. Moving on to the back row, we've got six. We've got Jamie Ritchie, Luke Crosby, and Josh Bayliss. I know Bayliss probably isn't mainly a six, but again, if you can play one, you can usually play all the back rows. Jamie Ritchie, I know he might not be everyone's favourite currently, but I really do think, especially since he's lost his captaincy at both Scotland and Edinburgh, he has really stepped back up. He was turnover king of last season for Edinburgh in the URC, won the most number of turnovers, and doesn't seem to be stopping that through this season. Luke Crosby, not long back from an injury, but has still been monumentally good. Just Mr. Consistent, Mr. Solid, rarely has a bad game, always steps up in Scotland. And then Bayliss, has been playing well for Bath recently. Has always been in and around the squad. Moving on to 7. Now, I will say I am so sad that Andy Christie is injured. He, again, is a really good player, and I actually think he will be challenging for that Scotland shirt. I think if he'd stay fit, he may well even be in with a shout for the Lions. However, a horrific injury from him's definitely ruled him out of all that. Such a shame to see, because he's a phenomenal player. He just can't seem to stay fit. So sad, but you get players like that. Anyway, 7, no real surprises here. I've gone with Rory Darge up first. Possible Scotland captain even. He was co-captain with Finn Russell over the Six Nations, and I don't see that dropping. I think he's been good for club and country for a while now. Next up, a man who's had a little bit of a renaissance recently, and that is Hamish Watson. Obviously not quite been firing on all cylinders recently, but really since he kind of fell out of Scotland favour back at the Six Nations, he has been playing well for Edinburgh. He's again put just Mr. Consistent. He rarely has a bad game. He's always in and about making good contacts, good turnovers, good tackles. Sorry, excuse me. And then last up, definitely a latecomer to the squad, but probably is helped by Andy Christie's injury. Not that it's a good thing, but might be by this point, and that is Ben Muncaster. He's really stepped up, and especially to the start of this season. He had an absolutely phenomenal game for Edinburgh a few weeks ago, and he's been decent since. I think he could be one of those ones who's might be in the Portugal squad and maybe in the Scotland A team. And then moving on to 8, again, no real surprises here. Jack Dempsey up first. Again, I think he's in contention for the Lions. Matt Fagerson, Mr. Consistent, has always been there or thereabouts. And then back in the team after a few years out is Magnus Bradbury. Seems to be finding his feet again at Edinburgh, and what good luck he is. He's a phenomenal player when he gets up to it. So there's the forwards. So a kind of mix of younger and older, a mix of some newer players, some fresh blood, while also having the old guard in, which I think is what you kind of want from these tests. You've got a couple of games that you can probably play a younger squad and see fine, and then you've got a couple of games where you probably do want your old boys in. Let's move on to the backs now. I'm going to start off with 9. First 9, obviously Ben White has been Scotland's starting 9 for a couple of years now, and I don't think he's really had any complaints. He's been good since he's gone to Toulon in France. Just Mr. Consistent all around. Next up, George Horne. Massive role in Glasgow's URC win last year, and he seems to have been continuing that. He scored 2 tries for Glasgow against the Sharks at the weekend. He's probably the best 9 in Scotland currently. I think he's got that 9, especially in that Fiji game where a Ben White can't play because he doesn't play in Scotland. Next up is Jamie Dobie. Now, I know I've put him at 9. He can play on the wing as well. However, in my eyes, his main position is 9. Again, he's been phenomenal for Glasgow, especially since the start of this season. He was good last season, but This season he seems to have turned it up a notch. And yeah, he's been in and around for a while. He's been playing for Glasgow since he's about 16. He's actually been around for 5 or 6 years. Just he started off that young. He's still young. I don't think he's much past 20. So I think it's time. I think he's come from such a far way out being so young in the Glasgow squad, and I do think it's time to start bringing him into that Scotland squad and getting him more caps. And in the last number 9, definitely earned his praises on the summer tour, and that is Gus Warr. Yeah, he was phenomenal for Scotland in the summer tour to South America, or the Americas I should say. Yeah, I think he deserves his place. Yeah, moving on to 10. The first 10 I don't think will shock anyone. It is most obviously Mr. Magician Finn Russell. Finn Russell is Finn Russell. He's still playing well. He's still pulling all the strings for Bath, who seem to be playing really well again this season. Yeah, don't know what much else to say about him. In my eyes, he's still the best 10 in the world. He's still nailed on that Lions 10. And there's no one really else at his level in England, Wales or Ireland, especially with Sexton and a Dan Biggar retiring recently. Next up is a man who again has had a renaissance after moving back to Scotland, and that is Adam Hastings. Again, he'd probably be my pick to play 10 at the Fiji game, where Finn Russell won't be available due to being Scotland only. Yeah, seems to come back to Glasgow, be settling in well, be playing well, been a massive actually part of Glasgow. I think he's actually been a massive missing key, and I think he's been playing well for it. Next up, I think it's time to cap Burke of Saracens. He was due to get capped at the start at the summer tours, but I believe he was injured. But I do think it's time to bring him in. He's been in he's been in the conversation for a while, and I do think it's time to finally bring him in, as he's been playing really well for Saracens again. And last up is Tom Jordan. Again, I've put him at 10. He can play centre, but I've got him at 10. Yeah, I mean, Mr. Glasgow last season, huge role in their URC win, and has been carrying on that form into the start of this season. I think it's time. He's only just Scotland qualified this autumn, and I think it's time to nail him down in that shirt, and yeah, definitely play him. Moving on, we'll go to centres next. At 12, no real surprises, Mr. Sione Tuipulotu. Yeah, again, he's my Lions 12. He's phenomenal. He's really stepped up his game. He's always been that kind of Maverick 12, that Pacific Islander 12, but he's just stepped up in the last year. He's become Scotland's defensive leader. I mean, you saw that if you look at Wales in the Six Nations. When he got that yellow card, Scotland's defence fell apart. And I think he's that key. He's in and around the leadership group at Glasgow. He captained them at the weekend. Yeah, top law to other 12. I've got Stafford McDowell. Again, probably quite unlucky that Glasgow have such good centres, as he's definitely good enough to play consistently for them. However, he probably doesn't get the game time he deserves, just due to the fact of that troublesome pair that you don't want to separate ever in centre for Glasgow. I do think he does deserve more game time, and I do think he does deserve a spot on the plane. And then last up at 12, I have put Redpath. I have got a question mark over him because he did pull out of the Bath squad at the weekend, and I can't figure out why. I've not seen anything about it. All I know is that he pulled out last minute, so I didn't know if he was injured or anything. If not, he definitely deserves a spot. He's always, he's been around for a while. Redpath, he's played well. Again, he just can't seem to stay fit. If he is not fit, I think they do bring Masesi Tuipulotu in. However, my initial thought on Masesi is it's slightly too early. I would put him in the A squad against Chile, as he's been looking lively for Edinburgh, but I think you probably want to give him at least another few months, just to maybe get a little bit more maturity in him. But he's definitely looking like a great player, similar to his brother. Over to 13 now. Again, Firskell really kind of picks himself, and that is Hugh Jones. What else more can you say? Hugh Jones is Hugh Jones, part of the troublesome twosome Again, I do think he is in around the Lions. He's actually in top scorers of Scotland. He's creeping in about there. He's got like 18 tries for them. He's he's in and about. He's been phenomenal for Glasgow again. Played a vital role in them winning the URC last season, and he's really, kind of cemented that 13 jersey for Glasgow. Next up, I've gone with Matt Curry for Edinburgh. I think he's definitely come up and through in the last year, 6 months, year. I know Edinburgh had a poor season last season, but he was one of the bright parts at centre. I thought he's coming up, maturing well, and he's definitely grabbed that 13 jersey for Edinburgh now. I think him and Masesi Tuipulotu going forward will make a great duo for Edinburgh. Will they break into the Scotland? I mean, that's all due to depend on Glasgow's centre pairing of Hugh Jones and Tuipulotu. But for now, I think he definitely deserves a place in that squad. And last but definitely not least, a player who had fallen out of favour, and there's been tons of cries to get him back in, and that is obviously Cammy Hutchinson of Northampton. He was in the squad for a while, then has kind of fallen out of form in the last couple of years, but he's back up and running. He was huge for Northampton winning the Premiership last year, and I think it's time that he gets himself back in the blue and white and back in a Scotland squad. So that is the centres. Moving on to the back three. Now, Kyle Steyn has just picked up an injury and is due to be out for about 8 weeks, I believe, so probably till about December. I think he's going to be pushing to get back for Glasgow's first round of European games, so he will miss these things. I think that's a huge blow, as I actually would probably have had him starting for Scotland, especially with Darcy just coming back from injury. However, Darcy's looking back to his great self, isn't he? But anyway, going into the wingers, I've got Van der Merwe and Darcy. Kind of picks themselves. I'd still argue they're two of the best wingers in the world, and they're proving it this season. Duhan has 3 tries for Edinburgh, Darcy has 2 already, so between them 5 tries in 5 games really does kind of set a great mark for them. It's a shame for Duhan that Scotland aren't playing England in this, so he can't pick up his hat-trick again, but I'm sure he will love to bag a few against South Africa and silence all those haters. And then, due to Kyle Steyn being out, there's a couple of wingers. One is Kyle Rowe. Now, he can cover 15 because Scotland are short of 15s at the minute. Kyle Rowe can do a job there if needed, and I think he will do a job, especially in that Fiji game with Blair Kinghorn not being available for selection. And the other one is, again, someone who impressed a lot of people over the summer tour in America, and that was Kyle Reid. Not Kyle Reid, Reid. Reid, he definitely has impressed. Rowe and Reid with Darcy and Duhan, that is your wingers. And then at fullback I've only actually listed one, and that is Blair Kinghorn. I think Ollie Smith is slowly starting to return back after having a year out with injury. Such a shame with him. He was looking decent, we'll have to see, but I think he's only just starting to return to training with Glasgow, so I don't think he'll be fit in time. I think if we were to see him, he might get into the Six Nations squad, but that'll have to depend on how he does in the next few months for Glasgow. Same with Harry Patterson. A shame he's been injured for Edinburgh. I think he would have been in and around the squad. He is just back. He played for Edinburgh A at the weekend, but with only one URC round between now and the Fiji game, I think it's cutting it slightly too close. I would play him in the Scotland A against Chile, but yeah. Anyway, there is my squad. So just to run you through again, I've got Schumann, Sutherland, Macbeth, Ashman, Johnny Matthews, Paddy Harrison, Xander Fagerson, Darcy Ray, Elliot Millimills, Gilco, Cummings, one of the Gray brothers, Williamson, Ritchie, Crosby, Bayliss, Darge, Mish, Muncaster, Dempsey, Fagerson, Bradbury, White, Horn, Dolby, War, Russell, Hastings, Burke, Jordan, Tuipulotu, McDowell, Redpath, Jones, Curry, Hutchinson, Van der Merwe, Reid, Darcy Graham, Kyle Rowe and Blair Kinghorn. Let me know your squad. Let me know if I've missed out anyone, obviously. Ben, you've missed out yourself. Yeah, I'll definitely be playing, don't worry. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, and until next time, I shall see you later.